A little girl walked into a billionaire's office and said 5 shocking words. "Arrest my mom, she did it." The room went silent. But when the billionaire discovered the real reason behind her confession, everything changed. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Monday morning did not begin peacefully at Carter Holdings. The air inside the tall glass building felt heavy. Security officers stood near the entrance. Managers whispered in corners. Employees avoided eye contact. Something serious had happened. Late the previous night, money and important documents had gone missing from one of the executive offices on the 10th floor. The amount was not small. It was enough to damage the company's reputation. And today, everyone was under investigation. Inside the main conference room, Daniel Carter stood at the head of a long table. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "We will find out who did this," he said firmly. No one spoke. The head of security cleared his throat. "Sir, the cameras show that only staff members with late-night duties were on that floor." "List the names," Daniel said. The names were read one by one. Among them was a name that no one paid much attention to. Emma Brooks. She worked as a cleaner. She had been with the company for almost 2 years. She cleaned offices after working hours. She emptied trash bins. She mopped floors. She ran small errands when needed. Most people barely noticed her. That morning, Emma stood quietly outside the conference room, holding her cleaning cart. Her hands trembled slightly. She had not slept the night before, because she knew something no one else knew. Inside her small apartment, hidden under her mattress, was an envelope. An envelope she had taken. She did not plan to steal it. She only wanted to look inside. But when she saw the money, her heart began to race. Her daughter, Lily, had been sick for weeks. The hospital bills were growing. The landlord had given her a warning. There was no food left in the kitchen. She had felt desperate. And for the first time in her life, she made a decision she never thought she would make. She took the envelope. All night, guilt ate her heart. She watched Lily sleeping beside her and whispered, "I am sorry." But when Lily coughed in her sleep and reached for her hand, Emma's tears stopped. "If this keeps you safe," she whispered, "I can carry the guilt." Back in the office building, the security team began questioning the late-night staff. Emma's name was called. She slowly walked into the conference room. Daniel looked at her. She looked small. Simple uniform. Tired eyes. "Ms. Brooks," Daniel said calmly, "you were on the 10th floor last night." "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "Did you notice anything unusual?" Her heart pounded loudly. She wanted to confess. She wanted to tell the truth. But the image of Lily lying weak on the hospital bed flashed in her mind. "No, sir," she whispered. Daniel studied her face carefully. He had built his empire by reading people. He could sense fear. And she was afraid. Very afraid. Before he could say anything else, the conference room doors suddenly opened. A small voice echoed from the hallway. "Stop looking for her." Everyone turned. A little girl stood at the doorway. Her breathing was fast. Her eyes were wet with tears. Security rushed behind her, trying to stop her. But she ran forward and stood directly in front of Daniel Carter. The room went silent. She looked up at him with trembling lips. "Arrest my mom, she did it." Emma gasped. "Lily," she cried. Daniel froze. The entire room felt like time had stopped. The little girl continued, her voice shaking. "She didn't want to. I heard her crying. She said she had no choice. Please don't be angry at her." Emma's knees felt weak. She dropped her cleaning cloth. In that moment, guilt no longer mattered. Fear no longer mattered. Only her daughter did. Daniel stared at the child, then at Emma, then back at the child again. For the first time in years, the powerful billionaire who controlled thousands of employees did not know what to say. Because this was no longer about stolen money. It was about a mother's love, and a little girl brave enough to tell the truth. The conference room was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed loudly. Little Lily stood in front of Daniel Carter, her small body shaking. Her hands were clenched tightly into small fists, as if she was trying to be brave. Emma rushed forward and pulled her daughter into her arms. "Why would you say that?" Emma whispered, tears running down her face. "Because it's true," Lily cried softly. "And I don't want them to take you away when I'm not there." The words hit Daniel like a heavy weight. He slowly bent down so he could look at Lily at eye level. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Lily Brooks," she replied. Her voice was small but steady. Daniel glanced at Emma. Her face was pale. Her eyes were filled with shame and fear. "Ms. Brooks," Daniel said calmly, "is what she said true?" Emma closed her eyes for a moment. The room waited. Her shoulders dropped. "Yes," she whispered. The sound of that single word felt louder than a scream. Murmurs filled the room. One manager shook his head in disappointment. The head of security stepped forward. "Sir, should we call the police?" Daniel did not answer immediately. He was still looking at Lily. "Why did you come here?" he asked her. Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I heard my mom crying last night," she said. "She thought I was asleep. She said she might go to jail. She said she had no choice because of me." Emma hugged her tighter. "I told you not to worry," Emma whispered. "But I don't want you to lie for me," Lily said. "If someone must go to jail, it should be me. I'm the reason." Daniel felt something twist inside his chest. "You're 7, he said softly. "You don't go to jail." "But grown-ups do," Lily replied. Her innocent logic made several people in the room lower their heads. Daniel slowly stood up. "Everyone leave," he ordered calmly. The managers looked surprised. "Sir." I said leave. Within seconds, the conference room was empty except for Daniel, Emma, and Lily. The silence felt different now. Softer. More personal. Daniel walked toward the large window and looked down at the city below. For years, he had believed that rules were rules. If someone stole, there were consequences. No exceptions. But this situation did not feel simple. He turned back to Emma. "Why?" he asked quietly. Emma hesitated. Then she spoke. "Lily has been sick for weeks," she said. "I used all my savings for hospital bills. I tried to get a loan. I was refused. The landlord wants rent. There was no food left in the house." Her voice broke. "I stayed late to clean the 10th floor. I saw the envelope on the desk. I opened it just to see what was inside. When I saw the money, I lost control for one moment." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I have never stolen in my life. I was going to return it once I found another way. I swear." Daniel listened carefully. He had heard many excuses in his life. But this did not sound like an excuse. It sounded like pain. "Why didn't you ask the company for help?" he asked. Emma gave a small, bitter smile. "People like me don't ask billionaires for help," she said softly. "We clean their offices and leave quietly." Those words stayed in the air. Daniel felt them deeply. He suddenly remembered something. Years ago, when his company was still small, he had met a young woman who worked part-time in one of his early stores. She had been hardworking and honest. He looked closely at Emma. "Have we met before?" he asked slowly. Emma blinked. "You owned the Oak Street branch years ago," she said quietly. "I worked there." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "I remember that branch." "It closed," Emma said. "Many of us lost our jobs." Daniel felt a wave of realization. That branch had closed during his early expansion stage. He had been focused on growth, on profits, on surviving competition. He had never checked what happened to the workers afterward. Until now. Lily looked between them nervously. "Are you going to arrest her?" she asked in a whisper. Daniel looked at the small girl. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also love. A love so strong she was ready to carry her mother's punishment. In that moment, Daniel Carter, the powerful billionaire who feared nothing, felt something he had not felt in years. Shame. Not for being robbed, but for not seeing the people who worked quietly under his roof. He walked slowly toward Lily. Then he knelt again. "No," he said softly. I am not going to arrest your mother. Lily's eyes widened. Emma looked up in shock. But we are going to talk, Daniel continued. Because this problem is bigger than stolen money. For the first time since entering the building, Lily allowed herself to breathe. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel Carter began to see his company and his success in a completely different way. Daniel did not send Emma home immediately. Instead, he told his driver to bring the car around. We're going somewhere, he said calmly. Emma looked confused. Sir, where? To understand, Daniel replied. Lily held her mother's hand tightly as they stepped into the back seat of Daniel's black car. It was the first time Lily had ever sat inside such a luxurious vehicle. But she was not excited. She was nervous. The car drove away from the shining glass towers of downtown and into a quieter, older part of the city. When it stopped, Daniel looked out the window. Small buildings, peeling paint, broken sidewalks. Emma lowered her eyes. I'm sorry you have to see this, she whispered. Daniel did not respond. They climbed 3 narrow flights of stairs. The hallway smelled old and damp. The lights flickered. Emma unlocked the door slowly. The apartment was small, very small. A thin mattress on the floor. A tiny table with only 2 chairs. An old refrigerator that hummed loudly. Daniel stepped inside. There were no decorations. No pictures on the walls. No signs of comfort. Only survival. Lily walked to a small corner where her school bag lay beside a stack of hospital papers. Daniel noticed the papers immediately. He picked them up gently. Medical bills. Prescriptions. Doctor's notes. He looked at the numbers. They were not small. She has a chest infection, Emma explained quietly. It kept coming back. The doctor said she needed stronger treatment. Lily smiled weakly. I'm getting better, she said quickly, as if she did not want anyone to worry. Daniel looked at her carefully. She was thin. Too thin for a child her age. His chest tightened. When was the last time you both had a proper meal? He asked. Emma hesitated. Lily answered honestly. Yesterday morning. Emma closed her eyes in embarrassment. I tried, she whispered. I tried everywhere. I even cleaned houses at night after my shift. But it was not enough. Daniel slowly walked around the apartment. Then he noticed something that made him stop. On the small table was an old photograph in a simple frame. It showed a younger Emma standing inside a small grocery store. Behind her was a sign that read, Oak Street Market. Daniel felt a wave of memory. He remembered that store. It had been one of his first businesses. Back then, he used to visit often. He remembered the employees laughing, working hard, believing in him. Emma stepped closer. You once told us that your dream was to build a company that cared for people, she said softly. Daniel swallowed. I believe that, he replied. You did, she said. We all believed in you. Silence filled the room. Daniel looked around again. Somewhere along the way, he had grown bigger, stronger, richer, but maybe colder. Lily walked toward him and tugged his sleeve gently. Are you still angry? She asked in a small voice. Daniel looked down at her. Her eyes were not afraid anymore. They were hopeful. No, he said quietly. I'm not angry. He crouched down so he was at her level. You should never feel guilty for being sick, he told her. You did nothing wrong. Lily blinked. Really? Really? Emma watched them, tears filling her eyes again. For years, Daniel continued slowly, I measured success by how much I earned, how fast I grew, how many buildings carried my name. He looked around the small apartment once more. But today, I think I learned something different. Emma whispered, What did you learn? Daniel stood up. That if the people who clean my offices cannot afford food, then I have failed somewhere. Emma shook her head quickly. No, sir, this was my mistake. No, Daniel interrupted gently. This is bigger than a mistake. He took out his phone and made a call. Cancel my afternoon meetings, he said firmly, and prepare the boardroom. Emma looked confused. Sir, Daniel looked at her seriously. I am not here to arrest you, he said. I am here to fix something. Lily's eyes sparkled slightly. Fix what? She asked. Daniel gave a small, thoughtful smile. A system that forgot the people who keep it running. He turned back to Emma. Get ready. Both of you are coming with me. Emma's heart pounded. She had expected handcuffs. Instead, she was being invited back into the same building where she felt invisible. But this time, something felt different. This time, the billionaire was not just seeing a cleaner. He was seeing a mother, and a little girl who loved her enough to tell the truth. And what Daniel planned to do next would not just change their lives. It would change his entire company. The boardroom of Carter Holdings was full. Senior managers, directors, department heads. Everyone sat quietly waiting. They had heard rumors. Something about the missing money. Something about the cleaner. And something unusual about the boss canceling all meetings. The door opened. Daniel Carter walked in. But this time, he was not alone. Behind him stood Emma Brooks and her daughter, Lily. Whispers filled the room. Emma felt her legs shaking. She had never stood in front of powerful executives before. She still wore her simple cleaning uniform. Lily held her hand tightly. Daniel walked to the head of the table. He did not sit down. Instead, he looked around the room slowly. This company was built on hard work, he began calmly. But somewhere along the way, we forgot something important. The room became silent. Yesterday, he continued, money went missing from one of our offices. We searched for the culprit. Some managers nodded. But today, Daniel said firmly, I am not here to talk about stolen money. He turned slightly toward Emma and Lily. I am here to talk about why it was taken. Emma lowered her head, tears forming in her eyes. Daniel raised his hand gently. Emma Brooks works here as a cleaner. She has worked quietly for years. She shows up before most of us and leaves after most of us. He paused. Last night, she made a mistake. The room stiffened. She took money because her daughter was sick, because there was no food at home, because hospital bills were drowning her. Silence fell heavily. One director whispered, but that's still theft. Daniel looked directly at him. Yes, he said calmly. It is. Then his voice softened. But if a mother working inside my building cannot afford food or medicine for her child, then what does that say about us? No one answered. Daniel continued. We have profit reports, growth charts, expansion plans. But do we know how the lowest paid staff members are surviving? The room remained quiet. Lily looked around nervously, but Daniel smiled gently at her. This little girl, he said, walked into this building this morning and asked me to arrest her mother. A few people gasped softly. She was ready to lose her only parent because she believed it was her fault. Emma's tears fell freely now. Daniel's voice grew stronger. I built this company from nothing. I once promised that when I became successful, I would never forget the people who helped me rise. He took a slow breath. Today, I realized I forgot. The words shocked the room. No one had ever heard Daniel Carter admit fault. He walked to the front of the table. Effective immediately, he announced, Carter Holdings will launch a new program called Families First. He looked at the executives. It will provide emergency support for any employee facing medical or financial hardship. No shame, no punishment, no fear. The room shifted. Some faces softened. Others looked thoughtful. And as for Emma Brooks, Daniel continued, she will not be fired. Emma looked up in shock. She will be promoted. Whispers filled the room again. Daniel smiled slightly. She once worked in one of our first branches. She believed in this company when it was small. She understands struggle better than most of us. He turned to her. Emma, if you are willing, I want you to become our community support coordinator. You will help identify employees who are struggling before desperation forces them into impossible choices. Emma could barely speak. Sir, I don't know what to say. Daniel smiled gently. Say yes. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she nodded. Yes. Lily suddenly let go of her mother's hand and ran toward Daniel. Does this mean you're not angry anymore? She asked. Daniel knelt down. I was never angry at love, he replied softly. And what your mother did was love you. Lily hugged him tightly. The powerful billionaire froze for a moment. Then slowly, he hugged her back. The room watched in silence. Not because of money, not because of power, but because something rare was happening. A company was choosing compassion. Months later, the family's first program had helped dozens of workers. Medical bills were covered. Emergency food supplies were delivered. Employees felt seen, respected, valued. Emma stood proudly in her new office one afternoon, organizing support requests. Lily, now healthy and smiling brightly, sat at a small desk nearby doing her homework. Daniel walked past and paused at the doorway. He watched them quietly. Years ago, he thought success meant buildings with his name on them. Now he understood something deeper. True success is when the people inside those buildings can live with dignity. Lily looked up and waved at him. He smiled back. That morning when she said, "Arrest my mom, she did it." He froze. But instead of reacting with power, he chose to listen. And because he listened, a mother was saved. A child kept her family. A company found its heart. And a billionaire remembered the promise he once made to himself. Never build success so high that you forget the people at the bottom. And from that day forward, Carter Holdings was no longer known only for wealth. It was known for kindness. And it all began with a little girl brave enough to tell the truth. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories, like, comment, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.